Hello everyone, my name is Tomasz Poszetek, and in this video I want to show you something that we've been all waiting for. And we've been all waiting for quite a long time already, because ever since the UI Flows was introduced, and then after we heard that Microsoft acquired Win Automation. What I'm talking about is a new tool that you've probably already seen during Microsoft Ignite sessions that is called Power Automate Desktop. The tool that is built on top of Win Automation functionalities that is going to replace one day, possibly by the end of this year or maybe next year, January, all the tools that we have in Microsoft RPA landscape. So the UI Flows and Win Automation together. Now let me just walk you through the new edition and how it looks like, how the Power Automate Desktop looks like, how it works, and how you can use it. All right, first thing, let's install it. So when you start the install, you can see that you can install either UI Flows and Power Automate Desktop that is still in a preview. So let's go and install both the applications. Now the next step is where you are being asked what extensions and what applications for UI Flows you would like to install, and as well for the Power Automate Desktop. Let me just select that I agree, and let's go. Yes, I do. Now, the very important thing after you finish the installation is to enable the extensions. So for both UI Flows and Power Automate Desktop. So if you haven't had them activated or installed and enabled previously, navigate to Microsoft Edge. It opened here. And as well, navigate to Microsoft Edge for Power Automate Desktop. And check if there is no sign here at the top saying that this extension is installed but disabled. Or simply go into Manage Extensions and right here check if this extension is enabled. So double check it is enabled, because without that you won't be actually use the software to use Power Automate Desktop to manipulate and to automate web-based processes. All right, so once that is done, you can simply close all these applications, click on the browser, and then hit Launch Power Automate Desktop. The first thing you will have to do once you launch the application is going to be sign in. So if you are not signed in, sign in here using an account that has obviously the RPA attended per user plan and Power Automate plan. I'll just switch to environment where I do have some flows. Now, once you decide to create a new flow, then you need to hit this new flow button. Now, what is happening? Now, what is happening now is that Power Automate Desktop is actually triggering the designer. Because Power Automate Desktop is actually built on top of Win Automation, as I said. Therefore, once you see the new designer, you will have this constant feeling that, hey, I've already seen that somewhere. So here it is, and on the command load, it just takes a while. So on the left hand side, we have this toolbox with all the actions, all the functions that are supported to be dragged and dropped on the designer canvas. Now the main designer canvas is also kind of similar. The only, let's say, difference is that we have here those subflows that were called just functions in Win Automation. So these are those standalone pieces of the general flow that can be reused multiple times in a different parts of the logic. And so here's the canvas where we just drag and drop the controls. And then on the right hand side, we have the variables, the input and output variables. These are used to be integrated within Power Automate. So once you trigger a UI Flows or the Power Automate Desktop from the Power Automate, the input variables defined here will appear as the fields that you have to populate with the outcomes from previous functions or actions. And then the output variables are going to be obviously the data returned by the Power Automate Desktop execution. And then lower, there are flow variables that are just being created within the specific flow. Next, we have the UI elements, so all the items, elements from the applications UI or web UIs that are being used by the flows, and images, which works exactly the same. Now, once we decide to create a new automation, we have to either do it manually by drag and dropping the actions that we actually want to use, or by using the web or desktop recorder. So first, let me show you the desktop recorder. Once you hit it, it will open this small window here. And then once you hit the start recording, it will really start to follow all your steps. And it works, at least in my personal opinion, way better as it used to be working in WinAutomation. Although it, for example, doesn't allow you to pass variables from flow into form here, or get the values from the form back to the flow. So it actually helps you to maybe make some things faster, although I don't really like it. So like once you finish all these executions, all these steps, you will notice that actually there are specific actions right now within your Power Automate desktop present. Let them just show up, right? So there are there. And also you have the UI flows elements defined. But what I don't like it is that they don't really work the way I would expect. So without the further introduction, let me just delete everything. Yes, delete it from there, delete it from here, and I'll just briefly show you how you can use it a bit better, like more the way I like it. Because defining all these steps within the designer just gives you a way more control over how the application works. So first, I will launch the application. Where it is launch, maybe not launch, run application. All right, so now I need to configure the application, the action. So I have to grab the Contosa invoicing path, so I can set it here as the application path. Okay, right, and this will actually, okay, and another thing is I need to wait until application loads, and I'll give it 10 seconds more after it is loaded. So this will open the Contosa application. The next thing I want to actually do is to define the input and output variables, because I need to first create a new record in Contosa application and then grab back the invoice ID. So first, let me just define those input variables. Yeah, input account. Right. You need to populate, you need to fill in all the fields. Every field is mandatory. And the last one is going to be the status. Now I want to create an input, the output variable that is going to be called the external name is the one that is used by the Power Automate, inside the Power Automate. So this is going to be an outcome of the action that is triggering the Power Automate desktop. This one is going to be the name of the outcomes. All right, so now I have the variables defined. So the next thing I want to do, I'll just open the Contosa invoicing application, is to register a couple of the UI elements. So I'm going to be able to actually use them within my flows. Now I need to navigate to UI elements and then create them. Okay, something too much, but that doesn't matter. Now I want to have this field. I'll just remove the duplicates. Okay, and then the save button. And and the ID. Right, so let me just store all of them, and then to remove the duplicates. So there is textbooks 1. I think, okay, this one is also a duplicate. All right. And last thing I want to do is to change a bit the selector for this element, because right now it is also selecting the value, as you can see, and I don't want to have this selector using a text, because the text is going to change, obviously, because it is going to be a generated ID. Okay, so right now I can easily go and say click UI in a window, and that is going to be first the text invoices. Then I want to click the new item, and then I want to populate text field in the window. So first I will populate the text box with the count. Then I will do it 2 more times. So then I want to populate actually the second text box with the contact. And lastly, I want to populate the amount inside the third window, the third field. Now lastly, I want to set the drop down. So I want to set drop down list value in a window. So first I need to point to a drop down. This is that. And then I want to do this by name. And then my name is going to be the status. And now I want to read, so I'll just show you how it works. So I want to now the extract data. So I want to extract element of the UI. So my UI element is going to be text. It's text, and I want to save it inside the var invoice ID. So this is going to replace or set the value of the outcome element. And finally, what I want to do is to actually close the window. And this is going to be window controls or invoices. All right. So shall I see if it works? Now, once I hit run, you'll notice that the UI of the application changed a bit. So I'll see the steps that are being executed. Now you should click on the invoices, then on the new item, right? And now save and close. All right, so the invoice ID selector is not actually working very well because it somehow selected way too much information. Because I think it was just too deep. Let me just see why this one works. Let me just add this UI element. Oh, it's gone. Just a second time. Invoices, and let me just try to get it another one. Come on. All right. One of these two should work actually fine. But it looks like this is all the same. So I think there might be actually Hmm. And maybe this one is enough. So I just need to replace this selector with the new one. Okay. So now the second thing I want to show you is that once I, for example, would like to create now a web recorder, the first thing I would do here is to create a new subflow that is going to be called currency conversion. And so again, here I can do either by just using the predefined actions inside the toolbox, so from the web automation and web, or by hitting the web recorder. Now, once I hit the web recorder, the first thing that I'm going to be asked is to choose the browser that I want to use actually for the web automation. So I can choose between Microsoft Edge, Chrome, Firefox, or Internet Explorer. Now, the only important thing is that you have to have this extension installed for the Power Automate desktop. So I'll choose Microsoft Edge. And here again, once the browser is launched, I will have this speaker to record my steps, and it will actually record every click I'm doing. So I'll start with this one and then start recording. So here as well, if I change something, that should be recorded, but it is not, obviously, so something is wrong. Nevertheless, if it was working, then here again I would see all the steps that I'm doing. So I'll just close it. I hate when something isn't working. And I'll simply start with launch new Edge. And I'll start with this URL, launch instance URL, let's say maximized. All right. And then what I can do actually here is to again try to add those UI elements from the browser. Okay, so first I want to grab this select item. Then I want to grab the input text. Then I want to grab the second select item. And I also want to grab the outcome. And that's done. So now what I want to do is to go into web form filling. First, I want to set the drop-down value of the first drop-down, and I want to say, okay, this one, and I want it to set to Polish zloty, because in this scenario we're going to convert value from Polish zloty into USD dollars. Okay, then I will populate text in a field. So I want to input the currency, the value that was passed as the input variable. So this is going to be the amount. Okay, next I want to again set drop-down value to the second drop-down here by name to United States dollar. All right, and finally I want to use this web data extraction to get details of the element on the web page, to actually read text from this item. And let's call it all right, so this is going to be convert currency. And so finally in here in main, oh, and finally I can as well close the web browser. Yep, that's the instance I want to close. And so finally I can go back to main and say run. I think it was run subflow, yes. So before triggering Contoso invoicing, I'll convert the currency, and here in amount, I will not populate the amount variable, but I will use the converted currency. Okay, so let me check if this is going to work. Cool. So first it should launch the Edge browser. Edge is being launched. Now it should switch from, well, if there was something different than polysloty, it should switch the value. But you see that all the places are working fine. And also you can see here that the values have been read properly. So the converted currency is read properly. The variable value is showing 322.85. So right now this value should be input inside the new record in Contoso invoicing application. All right. So this way it is all working fine. Well, there is still some sort of an issue with the invoice ID selector. That is something to be fixed. Now, once you're done, we can actually save it. So I have a second, of course, demo or a second example of this Power Automate desktop created that properly reads the invoice ID. And that's the Contoso invoices. Now, the next thing I want to show you is how to actually trigger the new Power Automate desktop from Power Automate actually. So the first thing we have to do is to go to flow.microsoft.com, of course, and then to create new Power Automate. So now I'll create a new Power Automate. It will be triggered from blank, just to show you the general idea around passing the parameters and then getting back the outcomes. All right. So here again, I'll just have those 4 variables. So account, contact, the amount, and status. And so now once you navigate to actions and you type UI flows, you'll realize that there is a new action called run a flow built by Power Automate Desktop in a preview. So this is the new action that has been added to Power Automate, to UI flow stack of actions just right after they ignite. So right here, I have 2 of those Power Automate desktops that I've created. The first one, the Contoso invoices that actually works, and the second one, the showcase. So I'll just use the Contoso invoices. Again, here you can run the Power Automate desktop either in attended or unattended mode. So I'll use the attended for this case. And now once this this Power Automate desktop is loaded, I will see here the input variables I need to provide. All right, I mean, for this it works. For this it should work too. Well, but it doesn't. All right, nevertheless, let's take this one. So let's use the account. Let's use the contact, the amount, and the status. And now as the outcome, I'll just use the compose action to write down the invoice ID, which is the output parameter defined in a flow. All right. So I'll save it and test it. That's fine. and I'll set paid again. Now, this takes a while because after I hit run flow, from my test so far, it was like up to 3 minutes before the execution of Power Automate Desktop on my computer actually started. Oh, but this time it was way more faster. So not 3 minutes, but actually very, very quick. So now we should see that. Now I have my hands here, all right? So it is not me doing anything. So it's now converting the amounts, and now it should trigger the controls of invoicing application as well. It is already triggered, as you can see. Quite fast, right? It's like everything seems to be working fine. Let's wait a while for the outcomes to be collected back from this Power Automate Desktop execution. This is all also happening via the on-premises data gateway. So if you want to test it on your own, you need to have the on-premises data gateway installed on your machine. So in the end, well, the outcomes, yes, it's not that very well. It is still not working. There is still some issues, but there is the ID, so that could be somehow read from this stack of data. Nevertheless, the data has been passed to the Power Automate Desktop. It has been collected back from Power Automate Desktop execution. So the Power Automate Desktop actually worked. And well, that's it. I hope you really enjoyed it. I hope you're as much excited as I am around the new tool, because you will finally have just a single RPA solution in Microsoft Power Automate stack. And I'm really looking forward to start using it. I'll stay in touch with you. I'll keep on posting new videos around the tool, around what we can do with it, around the scenarios. Thank you very much once again. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and we'll see each other in the next video. Bye.